Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts on the post-normal times that we find ourselves in today, and how can the MADANI framework, how can really help us navigate these abnormalities. But what exactly do we mean by post-normal times? Well, in this regard, I can do no better than to quote a leading proponent, in fact, the very architect of this concept, and this is none other than Professor Zia, himself. Post-normal times, or in German, postnormale Zeiten, so you have PNT and you have PNZ, quote, is characterized by uncertainty, rapid change, realignment of power, upheaval, and chaotic behavior. We live in an in-between period where old orthodoxies are dying, new ones have yet to be born, and very few things seem to make sense, unquote. I think that really sums up the basic concept, and a whole lot more if we go down and deep dive into the substratum of what these post-normal times do. And here I really appreciate the round given by Scott, giving me the details of what it actually is to be seen. Once we look at it visually, the impact is even greater than reading about it. Of course, I've had the privilege, having known Zia for that long, and Scott, of actually reading stuff. But that might be a little bit too esoteric to be discussing on this occasion. Indeed, as uncertainty marks today's epoch, attempts to make sense could well be a Sisyphean enterprise. Matters ranging from global geopolitics to grassroots politics are facing fluctuations. Trade, supply chains, and even new technology that once promised to bring us closer together. As mankind, under the umbrella of globalization, now faces the risk of tearing us apart. The geostrategic challenges facing the semiconductor industry is just an example of this, with import and export restrictions, home shoring, friend-shoring the initiatives, allegations of intellectual property theft, levied left, right, and center, and now, of course, the buzzwords de-risking, decoupling, minilateralism as opposed to multilateralism. So meanwhile, the degradation of public discourse, I think this is very key, especially in a society like Malaysia's, which is coming up with a lot of debate being going on, and politicians tend to be hypersensitive. I think this is a point. The degradation of public discourse and the decaying of trust in authorities have resulted in a post-truth world. The purveyors of lies, half-truths, bias, and disinformation increasingly trump those who employ objectivity, empirical evidence, and, of course, reason. In fact, even things that we once took for granted as the fruits of civilizational advancements, such as food on the table, clean drinking water, tamed environment, and of course a near or full disease-free environment, these are now all being threatened by emerging risks of food insecurity, extended droughts, the climate crisis, and the futures. Just now Scott was showing me just a little bit, because it's considered a bit passé now, the so-called post-COVID-19. We have now the future, the dreaded disease X. Can be anything. Now, it is such a fool's errand to be expecting more of the same, or stability, or business as usual. Honestly, therefore, in these post-normal times, it should be a matter of criminal neglect for us to be planning with normalcy in mind. The next logical question would be how we should prepare ourselves and the country to face emerging black swan, elephant, jelly events. Now, matters such as stable governance, mature politics, policy agility, and just now, quite to the point, Professor Zia was talking about how we translate our so-called strategies into real-life situations to prepare for what we may not be able to prepare for. Robust intellectual discourse, these are of course much needed and very much lacking. These are the basis of any functioning country and democracy. From a civilizational perspective, there is now a greater need to be guided by the values of humanity. More than ever, we need to ensure that our next steps go towards a world that is more sustainable, equitable, and inclusive. So friends and colleagues, this is where the transformative potential of the Madani concept lies. By imbuing our society with the values, and I'm going to be basically enumerating script, by imbuing our society with the values of sustainability, care, compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity, and trust, we will have a true north for us to chart our next steps, as we know. And this is where the Madani values will also act as a guardrail against excesses that have led to the downfall of various civilizations of the past, swept away into the dustbin of history, forgotten with the passing of time. War, natural catastrophes, unbridled greed is not a cliche. It is happening everywhere, it's also happening here. Unfettered abuses of power, internal strife and plagues must similarly, if we really want a good future, be relegated to the footnotes of history. By guiding ourselves with the values of Madani, we can ensure that future development goes beyond mere economic expansion. It's good to talk about prosperity and talking about the sharing, but we have to put the money where the mouth is. And many a time, promises are broken, all kinds of assurances made, and at the end of the year, when the budgeting is accounted for, there'll be a lot of things being not taken care of. We can ensure that growth benefits the common people, and that is in harmony rather than coming at the expense of our natural environment. At the societal level, the Madani values can also act as points of commonality for Malaysians, further weaving unity into our fabric of diversity. This will allow us to move beyond the colonial inherited racial stereotypes perpetuated by self-serving apparatchiks happening even at this very hour. If we look at the TikTok stuff that's going on every second, to allow Malaysia and Malaysians to reimagine themselves beyond the sole labels of their constituent groups. I need not enumerate the tribes, the races, and the ethnic groups. The Madani concept, with its core value of script, holds the potential to be this guiding light. Transformative in and of itself, these civilizational values take on even greater importance during these post-normal times. Among and armed with this knowledge, it is incumbent upon us all to act responsibly. In closing, thank you once again, Scott, my dear friend Zia, my profound gratitude for the generous invitation and for this very, very sumptuous optical and intellectual offering. Thank you very much.